Should the new series of MasterChef be axed? A report looking into Gregg Wallace's behaviour has just come out. 83 allegations were made against him, 45 of which have been upheld. And this includes 16 claims he made sexually explicit comments, 4 claims that he made culturally insensitive or racist comments, 3 claims he was in a state of undress, and 1 claim of unwanted touching. Nearly all of this is said to have occurred between 2005 and 2018. Wallace was formally warned about his behaviour in 2017, and he insisted that he made changes. Before the report came out, Wallace said he'd been cleared of the most serious and sensational allegation. The BBC now admits it should have done more sooner, but it's facing another dilemma. What should it do with the latest series of MasterChef? It was reportedly filmed last year and is fronted by Wallace. Alys, you've met Gregg Wallace.
I have, yes.
Tell us about that.
I mean, I've got to be a bit careful about what I say, given that there are lawyers involved, but this was a long time ago. I was in my 20s. I met him in a sort of professional environment, and he was very inappropriate. He made me feel very uncomfortable, but at the time, being a young woman in the media, as many others have done, I laughed it off. It's only now that I see what a pattern of behaviour this was, that it becomes more disturbing in retrospect, that he clearly behaved in this way to every single woman he met, and that it was all covered up by the BBC. And I think what I find really not distressing, but what I find frustrating about this scandal is that it has clearly been known for a long time, and it took very high-profile women who were powerful in their own right. It took women like Kirsty Walker and Asma coming forward to make direct allegations for this to finally be taken seriously. And I think for that reason, I don't think this series should be shown. And I don't think anybody wants to see Gregg Wallace cavorting around on their screens now they know what he's like behind the camera. And I don't think anybody wants to watch this.
I think the bigger picture is what was missing here, where, as you say, individuals had their experiences of him, and then it's clear it took that bigger picture. Somebody to put that together is what was missing. But then, I think about the chefs that were involved in that, the difference that can make to their lives, how long it takes them to get to that position where they get to show what they can do. And Gregg Wallace's behaviour, his activities are robbing them, aren't they, of their right to show what they can do. Sure,
but they could be given another chance. They could automatically qualify for a future series of MasterChef. There's no reason why they should have to be punished for his terrible behaviour. But I also don't think that he should be platformed and glorified in a high-profile BBC primetime show anymore. He's been sacked.
Yeah. I mean, Henry, I just put myself in, I've tried to put myself in Alys's position. Anybody that's been on the end of that kind of behaviour, they wouldn't want him certainly to have a primetime platform.
Right, but that concern is offset by what you've just said about all the people who have invested time, energy, professional expertise in making that show. They would be paying the price for his inappropriate behaviour. And while inappropriate, does it rise to the level of, say, I've got to be careful about who I name, right? But a Hugh Edwards, for example, or Rolf Harris, clearly illegal and appalling behaviour. I've looked at the allegations that have been upheld. They're very unpleasant, inappropriate, but they're not criminal. And could we, as the British people, handle watching this programme fronted by a guy, but he's not the only person, there's the excellent John Troder as well, and there's the professional judges, and would we be harmed by this? We'd just look at it and say, OK, here's that idiot who is made a fool of himself, but I want to know about the quality of the food, these brilliant stories of these chefs who want to make a name for themselves. That's what I'm all about. And if we really want to go as far as some people are suggesting, then what are we really going to wipe everything he's ever done, Gregg Wallace, from the BBC iPlayer? I suspect they're not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we are having to confront so many situations like this. We think about people like Kevin Spacey, like Harvey Weinstein, both of them huge involvement in works of art that we really love. Does that mean we never watch LA Confidential or American Beauty again, Alys? These are things which have brought people great happiness.
I'm not sure I would call MasterChef a work of art. It's a popular TV show.
As a piece of entertainment.
But I think the problem is that it was Gregg Wallace having this very high-profile job that meant he was protected from scrutiny. scrutiny. And I think that that's what needs to stop it. There's this familiar anatomy to BBC scandals where they're covered up and covered up and covered up because the presenter is the talent. They're the face of the TV show.
But it's not just a BBC thing. I mean, there are other broadcasters, and I could name, and I'm not going to, other very well-known presenters who destroyed themselves through inappropriate behaviour, either on daytime TV, and this is behind the scenes, daytime TV, or on massive entertainment shows, and it's ended up on the front page of our tabloids, and they'll never work again in those positions. Does it mean that we expunge everything they've ever done from our screens because we can't handle it? Of course it doesn't.
OK, let's have a look at some of Gregg Wallace's statement from last week. One of the lines that people have focused on, understandably, is this: my neurodiversity, now formally diagnosed as autism, was suspected and discussed by colleagues across countless seasons of MasterChef, yet nothing was done to investigate my disability or protect me from what I now realise was a dangerous environment for over 20 years. Charities have warned that remarks like this risk stigmatising the autistic community. I know, Henry, you do a lot of work with autism charities. Yeah. Does that hold any water at all?
I don't really think so. I mean, rather than work with autistic charities, I work with people in a professional sense who have ADHD or who are on some spectrum. I think we're all, to a degree, on some spectrum there, but who are definitely neurodiverse. And some have told me, confided in me. I have worked with in mental health before, and I've not seen that kind of behaviour from people at the top level, and I don't think it can be used as a cover in the way that Gregg is retrospectively. Now, if it is true that during his long career people have suspected and said things to him and then have not protected him, well, that's an argument to make. But then if he is in that position and he needed help, and did he reach out for it? You know, back in 2005 or 2010, if he was concerned that he may be harming people or potentially harming himself. If he didn't until he came a cropper, then that's reverse engineering.
Do you think we'd feel differently about this series if Gregg Wallace's reaction had been different? Every time the accusations came to light, he blamed it on middle-aged women, yes, middle-class women of a certain age, and then blames autism and then finds another excuse. Does that change the way we would look at this series?
Yeah, he's shown zero contrition, and I suppose I count myself as a middle-aged woman, a middle-class woman of a certain age. It's an incredibly rude way to talk about people who are offended by your behaviour. I also find it surprising that he's using this autism diagnosis as a sort of fig leaf for his appalling behaviour, much in the same way he's used a sock and little else to cover his modesty. I find it particularly surprising given that I believe he has a very disabled son himself. So I think this is quite actually insulting to people with autism who would never dream of behaving this way. I mean, that said, autism is a condition that means you have a problem with boundaries. Yeah. So maybe this is somewhere in the mix, but I don't think that's an excuse.
Yeah, personal responsibility has got to come into it at some level. OK, let's take some calls. Billy is in South Ayrshire. Billy, is this a series you feel you want to see, that you should see?
Morning, Matt and panel. Well, I work for a number of charities that advocate for rights for people with learning disabilities across the spectrum, including autism. But as far as Gregg Wallace is concerned, if he is in fact diagnosed with autism, he just shouldn't stand there and use his autism as an excuse for inappropriate behaviour, because I've seen instances of people standing before courts and been charged with different things, and then they're turning around and blaming their autism for whatever they've done. Autism shouldn't be used as an excuse for anything. It shouldn't.
OK, I think most people accept what you're saying. I would agree with you, Billy. I'm just wondering about this series now, because there it is. It's been paid for through the licence fee. We've all paid for it. And it's going to sit there, giving nobody any value, not helping those chefs who took part. If it's not seen, is it something that offends you if it's available to watch? Well,
I've seen the last episode of MasterChef. It was the celebrity version, because there was a blind comedian that took part in it called Jamie McDonald, whom I was behind 100% as a blind person myself. But as far as the series that's been already filmed is concerned, because of what's happened, if parts where Gregg Wallace is can be edited out, then still air it. If they can't be edited out, then I'm sorry, can the series.
Okay, so edit him out as much as possible or expunge him completely. Get him out of it. And if you can't do that, just bin the whole thing.
Aye, exactly.
Okay, thanks for your call, Billy. Carol's in Kent. What do you reckon, Carol? Is this a series you feel you need to see?
Hello there. Hiya. I actually think that the whole show should be axed completely, not just the series. I feel like things that I've been reading about the show, perhaps some of these complaints have been upheld for Gregg, but then on the other hand, it sounds like there's other things going on behind the scenes, perhaps with maybe other staff, perhaps with other celebrities, perhaps with other hosts of the show.
Okay.
It just seems a complete mess.
Carol, so Banijay themselves have admitted responsibility. Do you feel like they should have the show taken away from them? Is that what you're saying? Because they failed to manage it well?
100%. I think the show should be gone completely. They failed to manage it. I'm not entirely sure if the BBC have managed it well either. And like I said, I feel like it's a bit strange. It feels like something's being covered up to me. That's how it feels.
Okay. Go on, Henry.
No, I was going to say, I mean, look, I've worked in television for a long time, certainly in the past, and you have as well. Television is a people business. It's not like working in a hospital, working in a law firm. It's about people's creative talent, their ideas, and it's a pyramid. And at the very top is the presenter and the editor and people around them. And of course, you're going to see power play. You're going to see inappropriate behaviour, as you would whenever human beings get together. Because if we're going to drop the threshold to the extent that Carol is talking about, then we would never get a television programme or a series.
I don't understand that. No. I don't understand why you can't have an organisation that respects people who are in less powerful positions, who are coming in to the group as much as you can those at the top.
Of course, that's what you aim for, but human beings will be what they are. You go into a law firm, you go into hospitals, you've always got complaints of bullying in every single... Look at city firms. I mean, it's horrendous, some of the stuff that goes on there.
We don't just accept it.
No, of course not.
There's got to be a punishment as well when an organisation fails to protect those people.
Indeed, but do you kill off the whole firm? Do you close down HSBC or do you close down whichever organisation you're talking about? Close down an NHS trust? No, you try to fix the problem, and if you have to get rid of the individuals, fine. We don't get rid of the whole output.
They had a long time to sort this. They had they had years to sort this out, and they never piece together these individual complaints.
And I think the problem is, in particular in television and the media, as you say, these kind of power dynamics are at play in every organisation, but in the media, these people are protected by their platform and their profile and fated in a way that people aren't in other organisations, particularly it seems at the BBC when you have people like Hugh Edwards who are protected by their incredibly high profile. And that's where I think you need to challenge it.
Let's take another call. James is in Leicestershire. James, do you feel like you need to see the next series of MasterChef regardless of these complaints being upheld?
Yes. The show is bigger than the person. I do believe that, for example, if you used Have I Got News for You as one of those things, Agnes Dayton was scrawled across the papers when there was a massive scandal. Of course, it was all dealt with and the show carried on. Gregg Wallace has done something wrong. He has admitted it, yes. But the people who enabled him need to answer as well. And I do believe by the previous caller that it should go to a different production company is right. Producers and production managers see MasterChef as let's just say, one of those shows that is long running and they can get mortgages and car finances from that so they can basically live a normal life. TV is a very sporadic life.
Okay, so James, I mean, future series look like they're going ahead. Grace Dent has taken that role, and I'm sure, she's going to be fantastic in that role. We're talking about this series that's already in the can. Would you scrap it completely? Would you stick it on iPlayer and catch up, or would you would you put it out on terrestrial?
No, Gregg Wallace has soiled that show, and unfortunately, it's one of the things. An interesting insight I got from a production manager, before COVID anyway, and this was on a different cookery show, and I was a runner just starting out in the industry. Okay. I've now moved on to other things in high-end television. But an interesting thing that they said was, if a talent is caught doing something inappropriate, it's best to sweep it under the rug then get rid of them and recast, because it doubles the budget. You have to basically stop work, wait until the investigation's done, and everything has to be focused on that. So that's why they swiped it under the rug, because the budget will double. The BBC or whatever production company, TV channel will question why, and they want it gone as soon as possible. So that's why they sweep it under the rug.
Okay. Well, thanks, James. That sounds like inside track, if you like, in the industry.
The personality business, Matt. This is the problem. It's about people, it's about that creative talent and that sense that this is a character who fronts a show and the audience loves this person. That's the problem.
Yeah, do you know, it doesn't have to be like that.
Shouldn't. But
Everything's about a team, isn't it? I mean, of course you have the person at the front, but they're supported by, as we all know, by hundreds of other people working for a TV show.
Look around us.
Exactly.
We couldn't make this show without fantastic people here.
Yeah.